Hey everyone, Magic Sword here, and I know we were all expecting the neutral videos, but I decided that the tier list should go up first since, it's all class cards anyway. We can do the legendary, the non-questline legendary tier list after I do the neutrals. I'm thinking, mix it up a little bit. We need a little break up in the formula here. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to do them in class order. So we're going to start with Demon Hunter, which I think might be one of the bigger letdowns of all the cards, right? So, if you recall, the quest line for Demon Hunter is it's all about drawing cards. You draw a certain number of cards in a turn, and then your bonus for the rest of the game once you play Kurtrus is discounted cards. Okay, cool. Um, people have been like, "Oh, what do you do? You draw through everything, and then you don't really benefit from the discount. It's a little weak, right?" I've sort of come around to that side. My initial thoughts on it were like, this is high A tier maybe. I'm thinking it's more middling, like high C tier, maybe low B, right? So I'm thinking, I'm going to put it in low B because something I think a lot of people aren't realizing is that in a more control-oriented Demon Hunter, which we don't really consider Demon Hunter to be control style, where you're running soul fragments, it's really easy to draw cards and still have cards left over afterwards, right? So if you draw 4 cards in a turn and they're all soul fragments, then you draw that one more, that's going to increment the next part of the quest too, right? So on the one hand, with the soul fragments, you kind of need to be ready to just like pounce on a good opportunity due to, soul fragment RNG. But the idea is that you should be able to consistently, because you're dumping like dozens of soul fragments into your deck after a point. The idea is that you should be able to actually get that draw very consistently, right? Where your deck is going to be like more than half soul fragments or something ridiculous. So I'm going to put it in low B tier. Keep in mind that's still probably higher than most people would put it. I know a lot of people are very nervous about it. Um, I think that Demon Hunter just loves draw so much that it works out. But um, yeah, that's definitely where it is for me. So another one I've come around on is Lost in the Park. So that's the Druid quest line, right? The idea with this quest is that you are gaining attack so that you gain armor, and then the guff buff is attack and armor. It's just like a load of attack and armor at the very end, right? So it's something that you are able to get pretty quickly, I think, right? Um, and that was throwing people off, myself included, a little bit. So initially I was like, well, it's quite weak. It's not this big game ending effect like all the other ones, or like this, game changing, I should say, because it's just a one time effect of a lot of attack and armor. But you complete it so quickly that maybe that doesn't matter, right? And a way to just like the way you can just stack so much attack in Druid right now, like with all the new tools they have. We didn't have the full kit when I initially assessed this card either. So there are more tools to build attack, and there are more synergies with that than I thought there would be. So for me, Lost in the Park is probably like low A tier because it's kind of it's not the main thing in the deck. You're not building the deck around this. It's you have this as part of a relatively small attack package where you're just trying to where you're just like kind of trying to like beat your enemy down a little bit extra, like more than usual. It's going to be slightly more aggressive, more board based than not more board based than the zoo, but board based in a different way, right? You're going to have some medium-sized boards with medium-sized minions rather than these like kind of super combo turns where you have very wide boards with big minions, right? You're not doing these like big glowfly turns. You're more doing like Arc Panther and Wicker Claw turns, right? So I think that's kind of like there's been like a shift. You have to, whenever you're kind of inventing a new archetype or reinventing an archetype, you need to take note of what exactly that shift is and what exactly the deck needs to make it happen, right? And I think that Druid probably can make this happen. And even if it can't, like the thing is like you're not putting all your eggs into that basket. It's going to be a strong enough deck otherwise that Lost in the Park still kind of works out well. Um, Defend the Dwarven District. That's the Hunter Quest. Easy S tier. That it's super easy to complete. Spells that damage enemies. That's like most Hunter spells. And on top of that, just like the bonus to your hero power, being able to refresh. Like, did we learn nothing from Raza? You have a 0 mana hero power that refreshes all the time. I was explaining this to one of my friends, this quest to one of my friends who, keeps up with standard Hearthstone but doesn't play that much anymore. And when I got to step 2 of the quest, and I was like, oh yeah, and then the hero power costs 0. And he's like, oh, that's pretty strong. They might have to nerf that. And I was like, oh, you didn't hear the best part yet, where you could just machine gun your opponent down, right? So I think a lot of people are just thinking of this in terms of like, oh, you're going to Raza your opponent's face down all the way. And I'm like, well, no, right? Because the problem with Priest is that it's not so board based, right? Hunter tends to be more board based even in spell decks, right? Spell heavy decks like the current Hunter deck are still board based. So you're not just hero powering your opponent's face constantly, you're potentially using it to remove minions as well, which means that your minions are able to stick around, right? And that's something Hunter doesn't always have the luxury of, right? So you don't have often you're using your spells and things to hit face rather than remove threats, but because your hero power is infinitely refreshed, well, indefinitely refreshed pretty much, and your and it costs 0, you're probably using it to remove some problem minions as well, right? At least occasionally. So Raza didn't care so much about that because, the cards in a Raza Priest had the tools to remove board pressure, and they didn't have a way to put pressure up of their own. But Hunter's kind of the opposite, where its cards kind of suck for minion removal, but it does build up a board. So using your hero power to protect the board is like an aspect that Raza Priest didn't really need, but that Hunter does kind of need and can do as well. And I think that's something people are overlooking, right? Where it's just like, okay, so you can machine gun their face. Is that going to be good? Probably, but is it going to be great? I don't know. I think that the extra versatility and being able to just be like, no, your taunts down. My minions keep going face. It doesn't matter what you do, right? I think that extra level of just like, you're not allowed to counterplay right now, right? Every tool in Hunter's kit that allows it to go face is going to be strong, and I think that this is one of the strongest Hunter tools we'll ever see, frankly. Um, Contrast that with Sorcerer's Gambit, which I really don't like. This is going to be our first D tier. I like that we have a nice distribution so far. There haven't been any double ups lately, or yet. Um, Sorcerer's Gambit, I think, is just really bad. I think the reward is okay, and I think it's too hard to complete for what you're getting, right? Um, 3-step quest. A 3-step quest is like it takes a little bit, right? So you need to cast your arcane, your frost, and your fire spell. Now, the key thing here is that we have a lot of frost spells that generate frost spells. We have arcane spells that generate and draw, and we have fire spells now that generate fire spells, right? I don't think that's enough, because you still need to rely on drawing 3 different types of cards at least twice, right? Like, even if you have both of your things that generate, or all of your things that generate for each category, you still have to rely on getting a second copy of that because they don't perpetually generate, they just generate one more copy, right? And yeah, this the quest does allow you to discover spells and it does allow you to draw spells, but I don't think that's enough. And then in the context of the reward, it's just a permanent increase to spell damage, which is a big deal, right? +3 spell damage is scary, but that's tied to a 5-drop. I think that this is a bit underwhelming for what it is. I think that Sorcerer's Gambit, it's just like it's got the wrong ratio of difficulty to complete to power level on the end, right? Especially compared to the Shaman quest, which we'll talk about a little later here. Um, it's just like the Shaman quest seems easier to complete and it seems stronger, right? It's like the opposite ratio and it's good, right? So I really this is probably the worst card. This is the number 10 on the top 10 here. So bottom of D tier, right? Um, so we're gonna have our first duplicate here. Rise to the occasion. That's the Paladin quest. Remember, this is all about Dude Paladin. I'm gonna put this low A or high B. I'm not sure. We'll just put it here for now. We can readjust it later. rise to the occasion. Remember, the whole point is to play one drops. You just play a bunch of one drops. You can complete this super fast. Paladin has 2 1-drop or 1-cost cards that generate more 1-drops, right? So, you have First Day of School, obviously, but then you also have Blessed Goods. You might be thinking, well, that doesn't guarantee give you a 1-drop. It gives you a spell, a weapon, and a minion option. Well, the thing about that is you're looking at Paladin spells, of which, like, half of them are secrets, right? So just the ability to not guarantee, but like between the fact that like the spell option is more than half the time going to be a secret, and your other options, like there's a chance there'll be a 1-drop, right? It's really strong, frankly. So between the fact that Paladin already likes to run some pretty good 1-drops, and the fact that there are other dude synergy cards. There's a lot of dude synergy, but this is kind of the thing that's going to make the deck, right? This is kind of like the modern level up, or the modern odd Paladin. Because remember, the second upgrade, the second quest reward here is upgrade your hero power. You're easily completing this by like turn 6. You might be playing Cariel by turn 6, right? Paladin just has so many good 1-drops that you want to run naturally that this just fits perfectly into it. 1 First Day of School allows you to get the first quest reward on turn 2, because you First Day of School on 1 and then play 2 1-drops. It's that simple. Now they need to be unique, but they need to be unique within each subquest, right? So you can play, if you had 3 triplicates, you could play them all as long as you play 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, right? So that some people, the wording seems pretty clear to me, but I guess Blizzard, anything's up for interpretation. Some people thought that maybe you had to play 9 unique drops, but it is literally 3 unique drops, then 3 within that subset unique drops, then the same again, right? Very easy to complete. That makes it substantially easier to complete than the other interpretation, and I think that's why people were a little on the fence about it, because they were thinking like, oh, it sounds hard, but it's actually really easy. And I've convinced myself that I'm going to push it up to A tier. I'm going to put it above Guff. You know what? I don't know what I was thinking. A tier, easily. So our next one, the priest one, Seek Guidance. So this is the only quest that sort of adds an additional step at the very end, right? So you need to play cards in sequence. You need to play this on 1, then a 2, then a 3, then a 4, then a 5, then a 6, then a 7, then an 8. That's the order. You don't need to play within each subset. You don't need to play them in order. So it's 2, 3, 4. You can play those in any order. But the idea is kind of that it's like Math Priest. You're just curving out. I put that there just to have it there. So the thing is, it seems weak to me. It does give you an I win button that Priest can tutor out. That's true. That much is true. But it takes so long. And in the context of the other quests, this feels like it'll be a fast meta, right? Priest might have enough control tools to push back against people. At which point, you're basically running the quest to win control mirrors, right? Because if Priest is fighting Infinite Resource Generation Warrior, then Priest needs the button that says, okay, this is over, I win. Because they don't beat each other down, they go to fatigue, and, it's not quite a coin flip, but it's kind of a coin flip, right? So in a meta where Priest is not, is able to run control and win, it runs this quest. In a meta where Shadow Priest is dominant, I don't think this quest sees play. Where Control Priest is weak, I should say, because both can be strong. I shouldn't say that the way I did, but in a world where Control Priest is kind of weak, I don't think that sees play because Control Priest isn't seeing play. In a world where Control Priest is strong, you run this quest to beat other control decks. Otherwise, you might even mulligan it away, right? Because you should be able to grind an aggro deck out pretty quickly, compared to like Control Warrior, for example, or a Mirror, right? So I think Control Priest runs this but doesn't always use it. And I think its situational nature is why I'm ranking it so low. I think it's good when you need it, but it is not always needed, right? And I think that's the kind of the core of the issue here. So let's compare that to Find the Imposter, where it's like always useful, but only kind of useful all the time. Um, yeah, so the SI7 package, right? Let's address that part of it. The SI7 package itself seems a little weak to me. You can go ahead and check that video if you want, but the SI7 cards just don't stand out to me. Um, but this but in a world where they do work and I'm underestimating them, this quest becomes good enough, right? The little rewards, the little gadgets you get are pretty cool. Um, this is like, like I said, where Priest is situationally great in like a few matchups. This is situationally good in most. It's not situational. It's just good in most matchups where most quests are like you're aiming for great, right? This needs to be super impactful. This is just like, hey, I gave you some cheap, strong cards, and it's like, all right, cool. In exchange for me running kind of bad ones, so right, like it's the quest the SI package seems weak, so by overall weakening your deck, the quest allows you to build some of that back up and strengthen it again. Um, if they were to buff any of the SI class cards, that might be good. I don't have a whole lot of faith in this deck because I don't have a whole lot of faith in the package that's required to run this quest. That's the big issue, is the SI7 cards themselves. If the mini expansion, which I'm sure it will, runs at least like 2 more SI cards, I bet there's going to be one rogue SI7 card and one neutral SI7 card that they release there. Um, then this quest might be good because it gives you much more variety, and you can start running one-ofs of some of the weaker ones, like the assassin or the one that buffs itself, the Edwin one, right? Um, so that's pretty much it. I gave more full thoughts on the in the rogue video. You should go check that out. Let's move on to the shaman quest. Command the elements. So this is probably below paladin, above druid for me. I feel like this is very strong. This is a very, very strong card. So shaman loves overload cards just in general. They're strong. Nowadays they used to be really weak. They used to give you like awful value, awful value, right? They would like way overcharge you for the value of like playing something early. But this this is super powerful, especially with the synergy cards they've released, right? So you have the ability to unlock your mana crystals again in standard. You have the ability to tutor overload cards. You have the ability to in that unlock card, you have the ability to damage people with your overloaded crystals, right? That's nuts. Especially in a world with lightning bloom, you just there's no contest, right? Um so lightning bloom enables so much with this, just in the sense of like, you know, you gain 2 mana and then you lock 2 mana crystals and then you unlock them. Right? It's so stupid. Um and of course this is cards played with overload, not mana crystals overloaded. Um so that's something to consider here. But Command the Elements to me seems very strong just because all the overload cards we have right now kind of want to play anyway. You want to play a few of them. And there are enough overload synergies that I think you can kind of run a whole package with this. It might fit into an elemental deck of some description, or maybe a Doomhammer deck, although that feels a bit slow because this should be a spell-based deck. Although doubling, remember the reward is double caster spells. Doubling your Rockbiter or your Storm Strike could be very powerful, right? Because you're functionally quadrupling it because of Doomhammer. Um, so I take that back. I agree, actually. Doomhammer, this fits in a Doomhammer deck, right? Because you run lightning bolts and stuff and lightning blooms anyway. So you would just need to probably take out a little bit of the elemental package and put in a little bit of this, although that might be a hard sell, right? Um, But yeah, this will take some finagling, but I think this will be a very strong quest. Um, and one of the only quests that's stronger is the Demon Seed for Warlock. So remember, this one is it's a self-damaging Warlock archetype necessarily. Unclear whether it will be like a control handlock or more of a Zoolock. I'm leaning towards handlock working for it, but that it's a little meta dependent as well. So we're not, it's hard to say up front for sure. Um, but generally, it seems like you kind of want to burn through your deck as fast as possible, possibly even running some of those deck destroying synergies like Ultra Fire to help go through your deck. And then, once you're taking all that damage from fatigue, it's hopefully you've dropped Tamsin already. But once you're taking that damage from fatigue, you'll start damaging your opponent with fatigue. That's sort of the control game plan here. And then you're using all the hand related tools for board clear, right? Like the customer, like well, if you just have a bunch of cards in hand, you have your regular control tools as well. So, and Spirit Bread Baker, Spice Bread Baker, whatever it's called, right? There are a lot of hand related tools that lend themselves to a more controlling style. And of course, the empty deck synergies, unfortunately, seem to work better with this than with Niru Fireblade. So, actually destroying your deck and getting that portal seems kind of weak compared to destroying your deck and killing your opponent with your own fatigue. So I think that this is one of the stronger ones for sure. And I'm very excited to try it. It might be the first time I play a control style deck in a very long time. Our last one, ending on a very low note here, Raid the Docks. This is probably just ahead of the Mage one. I'll have to move the Mage one instead. So Raid the Docks, you're playing a control-ish, maybe mid-range if you're lucky, style pirate deck. And I don't know, man. I just don't think it's in the cards. I know I was talking to someone in the comments here about how you can like make it work. Maybe you run N'Zoth and you get you want the game to kind of go long so that way you get value out of the Juggernaut, which to refresh the quest here, you play pirates and then you get the Juggernaut, which is a unit that continually spawns pirates, gives you weapons, and deals damage, right? So the longer the game goes, the more you're dealing damage to your opponent. So this fits into that control style that Warrior likes to do, where you just grind it out. And normally Warrior isn't like the infinite resource generation class. Usually that's like Galakron Priest, but in this case they kind of are. And in any world, the big issue is that in any world where this Warrior exists, Quest Priest exists. In any world where this doesn't exist, Quest Priest might still exist anyway, right? So there's always a threat that it's going to get overtaken by a more powerful control deck, by a control deck that can just snap its fingers and end the game, rather than having to grind out the opponent, right? Because Quest Priest wins control mirrors, and probably most other matchups where Quest Warrior probably, I mean, it's just kind of weak. I think it needs to come out faster. I'm not gonna lie. I think if they buffed it, because if they lowered the number of pirates required to complete it, I think it would be better. It takes a long time to complete. I remember I just recently watched a Regis Kilbin video where he was playing his version of it, and his deck was a little slower. He was trying to do like a mid-range, like a more controlling mid-range deck. And he was like about to complete the second phase of the quest line, and he was like, I thought I was on the last phase. um and that's just, I imagine that's just how it feels. It just looks like you should be going faster than you are. um I just think it gets outcompeted by other control decks, and it's too slow to really compete with aggro decks that effectively. I don't know, I have very little faith in that deck to perform well. So I agree with all these tiers. I wasn't sure if I would like the placement of them all, but I do. I do think that this isn't my first try sorting them. I did do it before, and I think this is slightly different, but I think this is the best iteration on it. Tell me in the comments below. First of all, I'm going to link this tier maker in the description, and I'm going to put it in a pinned comment as well. So go ahead and link your tier maker, your personal version, in the list, in the description, in the comments. Where do you guys write? Where do you write? The comments. Thank you. Uh, I look forward to seeing your opinions. Go ahead and give this video a like if you liked the video, and make sure you subscribe if you want to see discussion about those neutrals and a tier list with the remaining legendary cards. So that's going to be all the minions as for each class and all the neutrals as well. I'll see you all in the next one.